This episode is sponsored by Shutterstock.com. With over 20 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 30% off, head on over to Shutterstock.com and use offer code GAMEBREAKER7. This episode is also brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and to receive a free audiobook, just head on over to audible.com/gamebreaker. Bing bong! What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 1 of XIV Reborn, the Final Fantasy XIV show for July 30th, 2013. You're watching Gamebreaker TV. I'm Gary Gannon, and coming up on today's show, premiere thing, well, kind of premiere, because we used to do the show a long time ago with different people, but we're back! So 2 years later, we're back, and so is Final Fantasy XIV, but it will be better, including this show, I promise. This episode might stink really bad and be a stinker. You might just want to tune out now, but maybe next week will be better. I'm kidding. No. All right, so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. What the hell does my version 1.0 Collector's Edition actually get me? Brought it right here with me just in case. You know, it's my whoopee. Open beta, early access, and launch is right around the corner, and our thoughts on closed beta so far. But first, so joining us for some XIV chat, you know him as Mr. Happy, Michael Poveromo. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. It's good to be on the show. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent. And we just found out that we just kind of like high-fived and broed each other because we're both from New Jersey, which is kind of interesting and fun.
Always fun.
And joining us from GameBreaker.tv and FreetoPlay.tv is Mr. Michael Byrne. I know he's super excited about this show as well.
Absolutely been waiting for this one. Making me write articles and articles and articles. Now the show is back.
The show is back.
Yes.
I gotta say, like, I wanted to say this for the show. We're talking in pre-show just like before with the live chat and stuff like that. And I'm taking back. There's like almost 2,000 people here at this point, I think, and showing up for the live show. So, thank you for showing up for this, the reborn, the rebirthing of the show. Because to be quite honest, we weren't sure if we should bring it back or not. We just didn't know. We were like, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what the community thinks, and let's do a show. And we didn't know if anybody would show up. And there's a couple thousand people here. Just, you know, we're going to talk about some XIV, and we're going to do the show every single Wednesday or Tuesday, actually. Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday. I lose track of days. Shows just roll into shows. I don't know anymore. So Tuesdays at 4 PST.
15,000 people sitting in an empty Twitch on next Wednesday.
Yes. He said Wednesday, didn't he? He did.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, 4 PST. Tuesday. And just really quick, get this out of the way to go along with the show. It's not launched yet, but we are working on an entire website dedicated to Final Fantasy XIV. It will be xivnation.com. It is coming. And for any of you out there that are, you know, super hardcore Final Fantasy fans and you want to volunteer help, we definitely need help. I know most of you guys probably live on some other Final Fantasy site right now. I know a lot of the other sites have a head start on us, but we want to make our little dent in the corner of the internet for the Final Fantasy fans. So very much a community-based site and resource. So guides, videos, all kinds of stuff. This show will be there once we launch the site. So for now, you can find it. This show will be on GameBreaker.tv until we get that site launched, probably about another week or so. But if you're interested in helping out on xivnation.com, please send an email to submit@gamebreaker.tv and let us know. We need help with like the wiki and things like that. Forums are being set up. So total dedicated site. Super excited about that. And want to give the Final Fantasy peeps their nice little corner of the internet. So hopefully it's in your hands, community. It's all about the community. It's all about the community. It's all about the community. So we're back. The show's here. It's Reborn. Who would have thought 2 years later, I've smashed my box to bits. Look, we both brought them. Yours is in like pristine condition. This became like a joke, a running joke on Gamebreaker for people who are just watching for the first time. He's got his birth certificate.
I had to have something. I mean, I don't even have the little, what was it, the little journal that came with
I've got the journal.
I have one picture.
I've smashed my, let me see what I have in here. I've smashed the books. let's see. I've got I've got this. I still got codes, product registration code. I got all that stuff. My discs are kind of I don't know if you can see this. My discs are all smashed up because I hit them with a hammer. And then yeah, here's my book. You know, I don't
disappointing my fans by not having.
I don't seem to have the birth certificate, but
you had to mail.
You had to send away for that.
I know the Game Breaker fans just can't wait for me to just do this. So hopefully that shit is gone. 1.0. 1.0 is out. 2.0 is in. Let's get to work. All right, so we figured on episode 1, we're like, what do we do? What do we talk about? So we figured, first of all, we might as well catch everybody up. The game's not even launched yet. And of course, we're going to get more nitty gritty and go down the rabbit hole as the game launches and things happen week to week. But if you've been following, the FFX IV Reborn, you're probably going to already know a lot of this stuff, but we're going to recap. I mean, so 1.0 launched, that was September of 2010. Wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. But seriously though, like we got to take a moment and just talk about how bad that game was. We have to, because it was. I'm gonna piss some people off because I know there was still a few diehards out there, but.
Do you have to bring us down this path?
I do.
Does it have to be?
We have to start. We have to start the show on this note of how bad was 1.0.
This has been an argument before where I tried to convince Gary there were in fact people that liked version 1 after some updates took place.
That's the key word. We're talking about launch here. We're not talking about after a few updates. We're talking about raw in its initial form launch.
What do you think?
It was awful before that though. The beta forums way back were don't launch. Don't launch. You are not ready for this. This isn't ready. It's not working. It's not playing. We don't know what to do. There's no direction. The UI is laggy. There's 3-second delays on abilities. Don't launch, don't launch, don't launch. And those were the beta forms of people that wanted to see the game succeed.
I wanted to see the game succeed. I really wanted to. I'm watching chat now and people are still defending it. Stop. I love you for showing up in chat, but oh my God. Square Enix shut the game down. If there couldn't be more of a red flag of saying like, this game really didn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out. I don't know ever in the history of MMOs, and I've been playing these things for years, I don't ever remember a company releasing a game, shutting it down, and going back to the drawing board for 3 years or 2 years, and then re-releasing it. It wasn't good.
It was a hard. Listen, I made that game a second job. Basically, it took, I think it was like 8 hours a day for 2 months straight to get to max level, and then there was nothing to do. It felt like the greatest waste of my time. Greatest, not a good choice. The worst use of my time, I think, would be a better way of putting it. And I kept saying in beta, oh, it's going to be better. It's going to be better. Well, it's better. It just took them 3 years.
Yeah. I think it would surprise most people was this isn't like some mom and pop development team, right? I mean, you're talking about Square Enix here. It's like they really surprised us. The things started going downhill really quickly. Then, of course, Tanaka got replaced by Yoshi P. Teams changed, all that good stuff, both as the director and the producer of the game. Thank God. Man, not to diss on Tanaka, but I don't know what he was thinking. I really don't know. You gotta give the stick to that guy because he was at the top of the food chain.
Do you think it was just people were afraid of him? I mean, somebody at some point had to go, guys, this isn't good. Have you played this? I mean, we're about to release in 3 weeks. Have you tried this? It's not good. And then all the defense afterwards and him getting ridiculously offended when he was asked to leave and voluntarily quit with all those quotes all over it. It just seems to me that what happened? Was it just a pride thing? I mean, that's the only thing I can attribute it to.
The only thing I take away from 1.0 that I absolutely love was the crazy prog metal. He was like so into the music and the script. I was like, yeah. But ballsy move, right? Square Enix surprisingly just says, hey, we're going to shut this game down and we are going to scrap the game. I mean, it still looks the same, but basically they're going to scrap the game as a better option. Took the next few years and rebuilt it. I don't know. I mean, do you guys think that was the right decision, or would you have been happier if they kept patching?
Well, I know that I played pretty much most of the patches in 1.0, and it got progressively better,
Mhm.
but it never felt like a game that I was like, okay, I can definitely sink most of my time into this. I can definitely keep playing patch to patch. But that was because most of their development team was working on a Realm Reborn to make sure that there was plenty to do in a Realm Reborn, and just giving us stuff to really hold us over, to give us some sort of reason to play in 1.0. And he did a good job. He did a good job taking the systems in place and making them at least work to some degree, and then at the same time developing a whole new game. That's pretty hard to do. He basically had 2 games in development the whole time, and I was really impressed at how well he handled that kind of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
What do you think, Mr. Byrne? Were you happy when they actually? I mean, you probably were not happy the day that they said we're going to shut it down. Wasn't really people were happy.
Actually, I mean, it wasn't thrilled or anything, but there was a time, believe it or not, where when they first announced that this was going to be restructured and rebuilt, and this was before the roadmap came out, and Yoshi P hadn't really said anything too much publicly. He really was just getting integrated with the team. When this whole idea of we can rebuild it, we can make it stronger and faster and better, even as a fanboy, which I'll admit that I am, I'm an objective fanboy, there was a time when I honestly didn't think it should have been rebuilt. That if this was the intent, that it should just stop, be destroyed, move on, and create new. And that's not from a game perspective, that's just from a logic perspective. The engine was the main problem in the damn game. And the client and server relationship was abysmal, and there was nothing fun to do. And Yoshi, Mike's absolutely right. Yoshi P, while building 2 games, did the very smart thing. It never got good for low-level characters. I will contend that 1.0 never got good for low-level characters. But he maintained those higher-level characters with new content and upgrades and fixes so that they would stick with it, knowing that he wasn't going to be pulling new players in left and right anyway. Genius move, but not one I would have probably made, and I'll admit that I have only recently been sold on the idea, recently being like the last 5 or 6 months, as pictures and things have started to come together publicly.
God, you give me flashbacks. I'm remembering the UI lag. Oh my lord. Right? I forgot about that. We're just wow.
Come on. When you die and you have no clue what to do, because to release/res is hidden 2 menus in.
Okay, but let's look on the bright side. We're only a month away from relaunch. So here it is.
Yes.
Has everyone played the game? I have played the game.
I've definitely played the game.
We have all played the game. So all of us have played the game. We have thoughts, we have opinions. But before we talk about the game, can someone please explain what the hell do I get for version 2 by owning that beat up collector's edition box 1.0 that is now all over the studio?
Well, I'll tell you what, they're not going to give you a new box. But they are going to give you... So if you wanted to destroy it again, you really couldn't. But they are going to give you all the new collector's edition items, which essentially includes a mount, a barding for your chocobo, a pet. It gives you early access to the game. Gives you a helmet that makes you look like you're from Final Fantasy XI. You get a free copy of the game. I mean, pretty much, they're just giving you the digital collector's edition of the game is the easiest way to say it.
Can I play in open beta, or did I have to register for that as well?
Well, you have to register for that, but you don't qualify, Gary, because you were in closed beta, so you're good. But if you've only just applied and never were in any of the closed beta phases, if you got that code to register for the beta in your email, register it within the next few hours, because that shuts down today.
Oh, really?
You don't
Wait.
register it.
However,
in your stuff, you can't do the open beta.
However,
you guys just cover the show.
They will open registration up again when Phase 4 actually goes live. So it's really just insurance that you're getting.
That you're there day one.
Okay, so people want to make sure that they do that if they own a collector's edition. Now, next question for people out there. How do you get early access? Do I have to buy another box? Do I have to buy the digital download? What happens here?
This is the sticking point.
Yeah.
This is where Square was not super intelligent, or at least well thought out. If you bought the Collector's Edition 1, and this is all you bought, you do not get early access unless you are a legacy account. Legacy accounts, whether you bought this guy or you bought the standard one, you get early access because you're legacy. But this just owning version 1 collector's edition or standard does not give you early access. So if you're not legacy, yes, you have to pre-order either the standard copy, the collector's edition for the PC, for the PS3, doesn't matter. If all you're interested in is early access, it doesn't matter which one you get, but you do have to buy it again to get that early access code and throw it on your account. Here's the worst case scenario. And Mr. Happy, I'm sure you've fielded this question about a bajillion times already.
He's face-bombing already.
I bought version 1 standard. How do I get all the collector's stuff and for the PC, how do I get all the collector's stuff and the early access and everything? This is the worst case scenario for you. If you want all the physical goods and all the digital goods and the early access, and you have the standard version 1 PC on your account, you need to buy the PlayStation 3 collector's set.
What?
Yep.
It's the only way to get this done because the Square Enix account system only permits 1 registration key per platform per account.
Oh my god.
So you can put a PlayStation 3 key on your account and a computer key. If you bought version 1, you're already eating up a regular edition version 1. You're already eating up that PC key. You cannot enter another one of those. That goes away, which means the only thing you can enter to get all of your digital goods, all of your physical goods, and early access is the collector's edition PS3 box.
Yep.
That's the worst case scenario. You bought the basic 2 years ago, and you want everything now. Yeah, it's kind of a silly thing.
You know, and you know what kind of, I hate to say, we're starting this show off on a great foot. But let's talk about how much 1.0 sucked and how bad this deal is. Because the other thing I want to bring up on that, can someone please, Square Enix, I know you're watching this show. I know you guys are paying attention. So can somebody please come in and revamp like their websites and their account management system? Please? Like, is it the most confusing spiral of like websites and things, or am I just like completely old?
No, it's pretty confusing. I know a lot of people have been asking me because they have a website that's their store,
right?
And then like their everything, and then they have account management, and you can use the same account for both. But when you go to log into the one at the store, you have to go through these like additional verification processes. Sometimes it just doesn't work. Meanwhile, it is the exact same account you're logging into the account management one with. So it's very confusing. And then you can register codes on the store just to keep track of the games you have.
So confusing. There's so many levels of confusion. Every time I go to log in, it took me, forget it. I'm going to move on. All right. But
Chad is bringing up the point of, well, just create another account. Sure, you can, but you're still going to have to make a purchase for that new account that you're creating.
Right.
So you're locked into a purchase either way. There's no shortcut around that particular scenario. Basic version 1, and you want everything in version 2.
Well, look, maybe
but Gary, you don't have to buy anything if you don't want any of those digital upgrades.
Right.
Your version 1, you can go into version 2 as a regular update. You get it for free.
Yeah. Now, early access. Do we even know how long early access is going to be? I mean, I've been seeing this image floating around, and it says 7 days, meaning I guess August 20th. But then I hear that it's changed, and this is actually unconfirmed. Do we have any sort of official statement on this?
That image came out of Australia and was later changed by the people that issued it to say get early head start, and the 7 days reference was taken out of it. And then Squeenix on their forums did come out and say, we've seen that there's stuff going around where people are speculating we've released a date accidentally early. We have not announced a date. They didn't say that it wasn't 7 days, but they did say that it's not confirmed, and we will release how many days it is shortly.
Yeah. And that's not the only one that I've actually seen in terms of problems. I've heard people giving reports of GameStop's putting up flyers that say 2 weeks, which is
doesn't make sense mathematically.
That's mathematically impossible with what the dates are that we actually do know, and it's pretty crazy that GameStop of all companies would kind of put that out. I mean, I've only heard this, but I've heard it so many times that I'm assuming multiple people have seen it.
All right, so zero confirmation on that. I got so going back to that. How many boxes of this will you actually own, Burn?
When it's all said and done, 3.
3 boxes you're going to own after this. Wow.
Yeah. The reason being, I have this guy from version 1, but based on the way I played version 1, which was just sub up to see the biggest updates and then unsub, I missed Legacy, which means I don't get early access. So I pre-ordered a standard version 2 for the PC just to get the early access code. And then, of course, the wife needs to play, right?
Of course, yeah.
So she's getting the collector's edition version 2. So by the time this is all over, there will be 3 of these boxes in my house, 2 collectors and 1 regular. We're not going to do it for the PlayStation 3, but next year we will probably do it for the PlayStation 4 just to, give them
I'm
more
kind of
money,
thinking about that.
I haven't given them enough.
Yeah, just keep giving them more. If you keep giving them more money, Squeenix, could you please just fix some of these issues? Just please, please just fix some of them. Website and some of the. Are you guys both legacy players? Because there's some legacy. What's going on with this smack talk about legacy players? Like,
that's all you, Mr. Happy. I am not legacy, but they are taking a beating.
Why? What's going on? People don't like legacy peeps now? What's going on?
All right, well, here's the thing. The Legacy campaign was something that was available to anyone who had a 1.0 service account. Essentially, if you had one, they sent you an email. They said, hey, if you do this, you'll get to become a Legacy character. And when your account becomes Legacy, you get a few things. Some of them don't matter, but some of them are pretty controversial. The things people don't seem to really care about are the Chocobo and your name in the credits. Who reads that stuff anyway? But the 2 things that are really causing problems, the first one is subscription fee. You get a reduced subscription fee for life as long as you play, down to $9.99 a month for the deluxe account. So you get 8 characters per server, you get 40 characters total. And then the other thing is that we get early access, but as Michael here said, other regular 1.0 owners don't. So both new players and previous 1.0 players who aren't Legacy kind of hate us.
Kind of stuck right in between.
Bastards.
Elitist. So I don't know. Do you guys think that they're going to change? Do you think that they'll possibly change any of this, their stance on some of this stuff? Because it seems like there's a lot of controversy surrounding how they're handling some of this.
I don't think they can at this point. I mean, we're less than 1 month away, and we're probably less than 10 days from open beta. If most people's estimates hold to be actually true, we're like 9-10 days away from beta here. So I don't think it's too late for any of that.
Yeah.
It's never too late. All right, I want to talk about, I want to chat about some beta, but first I want to tell you guys about Audible. I love the Audible. If you guys have not tried Audible, it is audiobooks on your iOS or Android device. I want to hook you guys up with a free 30-day trial, and I want to get you guys a free audiobook. All you got to do is use the URL audible.com/gamebreaker. Just go to that URL, sign up, make an account, and you download the app and you put it on your phone, and you start listening today. And I am listening to right now, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this book. Have either of you guys read Ready Player One or listened to Ready Player One? Mr.
Yes.
Burn, I know you have.
Yes. We've talked about this many times.
I mean, I'm going to play a little bit. Narrated by Will Wheaton. I will just add in.
Expression changing to that of a child about to reveal a very big secret. Halliday snaps his fingers again, and the vault disappears. In the same instant, Halliday shrinks and morphs into a small boy wearing brown corduroys and a faded The Muppet Show t-shirt. Halliday now looks exactly as he did in a school photo taken in 1980 when he was 8 years old.
Check it out. You guys got to check this out. Gamers will love Ready Player One. MMO players especially will love Ready Player One. It's already, I mean, check this out. If you look on, here it is on Audible. It's got 6,767 ratings, and it's rated a 4.7. It's already being talked about as a classic sci-fi going, you know, it's a contemporary sci-fi book. They're already saying it's a classic written by Ernest Cline. That's how good it is. And it's got all these really, really cool references in 80s pop culture and about, like, you know, games and going into virtual worlds and playing MMOs, and like you check it out. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. You could download this as one of your free books. All you got to do is go over to audible.com/gamebreaker, use that URL, sign up, download the app, download Ready Player One, and start listening tonight. Love, love, love having the Audible on as sponsors. All right, so let's chat. Let's chat a bit about beta. I mean, quite a few changes have happened since the 1.0. So far from like, there's changes from like, the UI has changed, the quests, dungeons. Let's talk through a few of those. Definitely a bit more of a traditional tab targeting MMO, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
I think it's actually, is it okay to actually say it's traditional in a lot of sense? I mean, I hate to say these words, and I know the chat room is going to absolutely blow up on me right now when I say this, but this is so overused. But Yoshi P actually talked about this a while ago. Here's his quote. Actually, he said, I think it would have been good if he's talking about 1.0. He said, I think it would have been good if they tried seeing what happened if they turned World of Warcraft into Final Fantasy. So because they tried only to make something that was different from FFXI, they ended up with not much of anything. They should have said, hey, go play WoW for a year for inspiration. So sorry to say, but I gotta say, like, to some extent, do you feel, Burn, I know you played a lot of World of Warcraft. You feel a lot of the World of Warcraft influence in 2.0?
Yes. I mean, there's no point in denying it.
I stayed as far away from calling it a WoW clone.
From WoW clone as you could.
I said influence.
But influence is definitely the right word to use. I mean, it's taking more of the traditional systems, whether it's the UI, the tab targeting, the hotbar-based combat, the queuing for dungeons. It's taking more of those convenience features that kind of started in WoW and permeated throughout the whole genre, and finally putting them into a Final Fantasy, which is what Final Fantasy XI players never had, because that was just a totally different monster as far as the way you played the game. It's definitely not a WoW clone. I think to use that term is totally unfair. But it does certainly borrow some of the more traditional aspects of MMOs for the last 5 years or so that we're familiar with and sync them into a Final Fantasy IP, which to me is not necessarily a bad thing, because I still think there's room in this whole market for tab target games and more traditional MMOs. So it's all right in my book so far.
How do you feel about it, Mr. P?
Well, I think his outlook on calling it a WoW clone is definitely a well-versed one, because I feel like as soon as somebody sees an action bar and a third person, they don't even have to look at any of the other features. They call it a WoW clone. And I mean, it's even World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft didn't build everything from the ground up. They sort of looked at other games that were doing right, other RPGs. They said, all right, that works. We'll modify it. We'll work on this. So there's definitely inspiration. I think influence also a very good word, because if something else works, why try to be different? And 1.0 is a perfect example of how trying to be different can sometimes be the death of it.
Well, here's my question. So there's a couple of things I want to get into here, but the first one is, what's your take? What do you guys think the Final 11 players are going to think? Like, because this is going to be very different than 11.
I got asked that, I think it was yesterday, actually. Somebody asked if I thought they were going to, maybe it was this morning, if I thought they were going to pull their own audience. I mean, that's certainly a danger, right? When a company puts out 2 MMOs, are they killing their own audience? I don't think they're even touching their same audience. There's going to be a certain amount of overlap, like people like Mr. Happy and myself that have played Final Fantasy XI and maybe still play it off and on every once in a while now, and who are planning to go to 14. There's certainly a little bit of an overlap there. But if you are so ingrained in the party mechanics and the group-driven experience that is Final Fantasy XI...
You're not going to have that, are you?
Final Fantasy XIV doesn't give that to you until a little later in the game.
Well, so we've heard,
you have
though,
to work
right?
your way to that stuff.
But that's only so we've heard. We don't really know, right? We didn't kind of...
we know.
Yeah.
I mean, your main storyline quest, once you hit 20, pretty much forces you into the group-based instance dungeons and things like that to even progress your story.
Yeah.
So there's literal locks where you can't progress the story anymore until you start grouping up a little bit to do fates and things like that.
So then there is going to be
It's nowhere near as party-dependent as Final Fantasy XI is.
But
So
as the game progresses, there's probably going to be a little bit of crossover. Do you guys think that they may offer some sort of like package deal soon for subscription to like both 11 and 14 to play both?
No, I don't think they do. I think the days of that are done, because they had that for 1.0. If you remember, you got down to like $8 a month or something for 11. I think the games at this point are just completely separate. I think they understand that too, that there's really no point in offering some sort of bonus package. People are most likely either going to stick with 11, a game they've invested years into, or they're going to try out 14. I mean, I just don't see a world for playing both of them, especially with the amount of time sinks that both of them can generate. I mean, I just don't see how you could do it.
You guys think there's any possibility
that would like them to do that? I agree. I mean, I would love them to do it because I would play both, but I don't think they're going to do it.
I've actually heard rumors about other games that do that, and it actually does not work all that well. Won't mention any game companies that do it, but I've actually heard it doesn't really work. So going back to the 2.0, and I guess, you know, we'll say it's being a bit more of a traditional MMO, the tab targeting, things like that. Is there any possibility that you think that by being so traditional, it could actually hurt Final Fantasy XIV, or do you think this is exactly what the community has been looking for?
I think that's a really good question, actually. It's definitely somewhat hurting the old Final Fantasy XI players like myself. I mean, I played 11 for 7 years, but I feel like 11 is archaic. I mean, there's no getting around. The game was made in 2001, so expecting a game to come out like that today is pretty much unheard of. And it's just it can't happen. I mean, I had to step away from the MMO world when I stopped playing 11 to even understand how the rest of it worked for you.
How even like so you're saying on the 11 side, yes, it could possibly hurt, and I'm even thinking about, well, you know, we've now gotten into like the era of sort of the action-based, you know, MMOs, and there's a lot more things with like reticles and things where the tab targeting thing is, it's still happening, but it's, you know, they're moving more to more action-based combat, and this game doesn't do that. And on top of that, it's a sub fee, right? So that's another thing that we've seen move, is the subscription model based move away a little bit. So I don't know, Berm, what do you think? Do you think some of this traditional?
I think the sub's a different thing, and I think that is an important question. But let's set that aside just for a second. The traditional aspects of the game, they're not going to hurt it any more than it hurts other MMOs, right? Every time a new free-to-play game comes out, or a new sub-base, or a new buy-to-play, one of the first big things that you hear on different boards and forums and everything is, oh, it's tab targeting, or oh, it's action combat, I can't wait. And there's always that audience that's like, oh, I'm never playing a tab targeting game again now that I've played Terra and Guild Wars 2. Okay, fine. We get it. I don't think that's going to add to it, but I don't understand, and maybe you two can help me with this. I don't understand where all the venom comes from for Final Fantasy XIV. It's a game right now that even if you have no desire to play it, you cannot pass up the chance.
Internet.
I know, right? But I've never seen it on this level. I've always seen the, oh, my game is better than your game, so let's argue about it because we always want to be playing the best MMO. But this is one where even the people that hate it cannot leave the Final Fantasy forums alone. They're never going to play it, but they're always in the forums. I think that, you know, it's already got its own hurt. You know you're going to try it, you know you're going to play it, or you know you're not. I don't think that it being traditional hurts that at all.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I think a little of that stems from sort of like the Final Fantasy community in general is very tight. Like, especially in the MMO side, like it's a very tight-knit crew, like kind of like hang out together, like in the same places, a couple spots, you know, and it's a bit smaller. So I feel like whenever there's that sort of group-orientated mentality of people being kind of tight, there's always outsiders outside of that box who get angry at that because they're not really inside of the box. The only other thing they can do is kind of like yell and lash out. It's I feel like
they're jealous of
us. I was gonna say I'm feeling like there's a little bit of jealousy. Well, I think there is, because I think like Final Fantasy really has that. And I talked about this, you know, even when they scrapped 1.0 and we were like, you know, discussing on shows like This Week in MMO is like, wow, I've never seen a company do this before. And usually when MMOs, you know, kind of blow it and they suck, they don't usually get a second chance. And I was always saying like, this is the one game I think could actually get a second chance. And it's because the player base is so hardcore. Like they want to play in this world. They want to do these quests. They want this storyline. So I think that's partially why, you know, the more popular you are and sort of like the more hardcore dedicated audience you have, the more haters going to hate.
Well, I
like that, Gary. They're jealous of us. I'm going to roll with that. I like that.
I guess. I never really looked at it that way. That's a good way of looking. And I've been part of the Final Fantasy community.
Helps me sleep at night. Helps me sleep at night.
Oh, man.
I don't know, but let's talk about the story for a little bit. So, I mean, obviously the game and beta, it's much more easy to navigate. I mean, things are a lot easier to get grasp and just start moving and doing stuff. So far, what I've seen, and I have not played to very high level, mainly because I didn't want to spoil it, especially the story. But the story seems really cool so far. Expected. It's Final Fantasy, right? A Final Fantasy title, but how does this like work through with story quests, class quests, side quests, leaves, etc., etc.? How does it all tie together?
There's a lot of versions of quests in this game.
There are a lot.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, the main story is kind of really just there. It's mostly for new players, I guess you could say. Obviously, a lot of legacy players or 1.0 players, or anyone who's played it before, they're gonna have to do it again. But it's sort of a guide for new players. I mean, you have to go through the main story to unlock certain dungeons. You have to go through the main story to unlock a lot of the grouping mechanics. You have to go through to unlock certain fights. I mean, you have to progress through the main story. There's no way around it. But for new players, it's sort of a guide, so that way the second time they go through, they know about all these features. When they go to level their second classes and their extra jobs and everything, they're aware of the order that things are supposed to happen. So it acts as your initial guidance. And then after that, it's up to you to use what you know to level your subsequent classes and jobs.
And what's funny about that, too, is one of the gripes that you see on a lot of fan-made content, or, well, slideshows, basically, right now, since we're not allowed to do video, and forums, is that the game's too easy, the game's too easy, the game's too easy. And the story kind of caters to that. And Yoshi P wrote up this big, long thing about why he chose this direction. Not only is the game being catered to MMO players like us, but he wanted to cater it to somebody that's going to treat the game as a Final Fantasy numbered game. Not an MMO, just a standard Final Fantasy numbered entry. And so, yeah, 0 through 15 is incredibly easy because he's catered it to people, to try and cater it to people that have never played MMOs, that are trying to enjoy that story and need some extra help getting acclimated to this type of game. This main story itself is the same for everybody. Your locations and the order you do things may be a little bit different depending on what class you pick and where you start and where you have to go. But the main story itself is the same for everybody, and once you've been through it, you're done. You will never go through it again. The rest of your class leveling will become mainly driven by your class quests, which you'll get every 5 levels. And it'll just be, if you're a gatherer, it'll go get something and bring it back. If you're a disciple of hand, you'll go make something and bring enough of them back. You'll get those every 5 levels, and then you'll be doing things like, besides running dungeons and all these other things you would normally do, the other 2 main types of quests are leave quests and guild hests, or guild leaves, I apologize. So think of them as dedicated repeatables, right? You can do a certain number of them per day, based on the area you're in is going to be what level they are, and the targets are yours. You don't have to worry about farming and things like that. There's about a bajillion ways to earn experience, so you don't have to depend on those if you don't want to, but they're there to make it a little bit easier.
That was my next question, because I hate dailies, and you just said the word like dailies, and I was like, oh, I got to do these every day.
Do the hunting log. You know?
I'm not a fan of dailies, so I don't have to do all of these. I'm going to be totally fine gaining experience in other ways, correct?
Yeah, go do the hunting log, go run dungeons, go do something like that. And once you get a class to 50, you're going to get a boon to the remaining classes as you start leveling them up too, and the experience they gain. So it's not the same drawn out time path. It does increase the speed after you've done it once. Yeah. So yeah. Cool. You got plenty to do, Gary. If you don't want to do them, fine. If you do, it'll go
I need things to do, just not dailies. I'm not a fan of them. I'm going to ask some questions out there because I'm sure there's some new players out there who are just coming into 2.0 fresh and didn't maybe play 1.0. So we have the same classes, though, coming from version 1. We have the same advanced jobs, but somebody school me a little bit on the difference between class and job first.
There actually is a difference in what is coming, and Mr. Happy, you probably can just take us through that. There's a difference in a couple classes between 1 and 2. 1 class and 2 jobs, actually.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we have Arcanist is going to be the newest class, and there was always a guild for it in 1.0, and everybody wanted it. So now it's going to be the first new class we get. And it's actually a class that branches off into 2 jobs, and the jobs are Scholar and Summoner. Summoner being one of the more demanded ones. And but this has, like, as you said, brought about a lot of confusion. What's the difference between a class and a job? Why can't I just be a class? Why is it better to be a job? Well, a class fills a general role. I mean, obviously, a gladiator is a tank, and a paladin is still a tank. But a gladiator can fill a more generic role, in the sense that they have access to more cross-class abilities, because you can level multiple classes and use certain abilities on your other classes. And it just it's a bit more accessible, and it's a bit more customizable. However, they don't really have as powerful stats, and their tools that they use might not be focused on their role. You could have a gladiator that's taking a bunch of damaging abilities instead of the abilities that would keep him alive or make his defenses higher. A job, on the other hand, fills a specific role. It narrows down your abilities, gives you a few extra ones that help you complete that role, such as a tank, a healer, or a damage dealer. And it also narrows down the other abilities that you can take from classes. That way you're only using useful tools for your party. So really, it's classes, he says, are for soloing, and jobs are for partying, is the real difference he likes to say when he's generalizing it. Yoshi P that.
Now I hear everybody in the internet yelling, how the hell am I going to level all these classes? Do I have to?
No.
No, absolutely not.
Play what you want.
Yeah, very, very simple. I mean, there are certain classes that will better benefit the jobs that you level. And I mean, each job can only take from 2 classes other than the base one. So there's really, if you just want to play a tank, just level, you know, paladin, warrior, and then whatever classes, maybe to like 15, 20, depending on what abilities that you want, and just do that. You're not forced to level all 8 classes and unlock all 9 jobs. You don't forced to do that.
But if you don't, you're doing it wrong in my book.
Yeah, it's something to do, and
you're playing the game wrong.
Yeah, your character only gets better. I mean, that's the bottom line of it.
I'm sorry, max jobs at, well, this was when the cap was 75, but all jobs at 75 in Final Fantasy XI was mad street cred. Street cred when it was the 75 cap. You'd walk down the street and people just knew Gary. They were like, "Ooh, that bastard pays Final Fantasy." All 75s.
All 75. All right, I'm just going to put it out there right now. Never happening. Never. Just get that right out there right now. Not happening. Any key jobs missing so far that you guys think that should be added? Have they talked about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's great swords are missing, right? Yeah. That weapon, you'll probably see that going to Dark Knight. There's some missing, but most of the big ones have been spoken to, at least by Yoshi P, and referenced.
Samurai. Everybody's talking about Samurai in chat room.
Samurai. You'll see Samurai, Dark Knight, Thief, and Ninja are like the 4 that pretty much lead off this discussion and make appearances in almost every live letter.
Red Mage too. Don't forget about Red Mage. Red
Mage was my 11 main. It is killing me that it's not in there at launch. I'm going Black Mage until Red Mage is there. But yeah, they'll come. And Yoshi P has said, yes, we plan to do these. We'll definitely be adding classes as we go. But this is our launch lineup. We really need to get the game out sometime this year.
Yeah.
It's got to launch eventually. All right. Overall gameplay thoughts on 2.0 from beta. Just, you know, we can't get into all the nitty gritty things yet, but what's Michael P, what's your sort of like thoughts on the new version of just how the gameplay mechanics and everything sort of works and jives?
Well, the first big improvement is when I press my buttons, they actually work immediately.
You actually fire off a spell or an ability. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, there's no like 3,000 MS ping going back to Japan. It's definitely easy to access, and I actually kind of like I didn't expect it to have as much customizability, just expecting from Square Enix like what they've given us in the past. But they have really progressed as this game has come along. Every week they're just like fixing something about the gameplay that maybe people don't like so much. I mean, they've changed the global cooldowns in the past. That's
exactly what I wanted to just ask you about, because you talked about like a latency with the millisecond. What do you think about the global cooldown the way it is right now? Because I actually, you know, I feel it's a little slow, but like I said, I haven't played to later levels, and I keep hearing that there's certain abilities and things that start affecting your global cooldown later on as you gain more abilities. What's your take on it? How does it feel?
Yeah, pretty much every job has some sort of ability that doesn't sit on a global cooldown. I know, like Paladins, almost all their defensive cooldowns don't sit on the global cooldown. A lot of jobs have sort of abilities that can trigger and reset their global cooldowns, and they don't sit on them to begin with. They're abilities that you can weave in between your global cooldowns. There's combos that do sit on the global cooldown, but you have to use them intelligently because you might need to weave in other abilities. It all plays to Final Fantasy, in my opinion. Having a 2.5 second global cooldown, it kind of takes me back almost to like original Final Fantasy days. You're waiting for that ATB gauge to fill up to do your next move, and you're doing it, and it has that sort of Final Fantasy feel. I feel like it fits the universe, and I personally think that it's not that big of a deal.
That's actually a really interesting way. That's actually a really interesting way to kind of think about it, because I hadn't really thought of it in those terms. I was kind of comparing it to like, you know, other MMOs that are out on the market now and how they sort of feel combat-wise. But you're right. I mean, it kind of does. I mean, you remember just waiting for those bars to fill up and things, and like the anticipation of you just like, oh my God, it's so close, so close. And then you're just like, yeah, firing it off. So it's really interesting. What'd you think, Brian?
Why are you jamming X? You know it doesn't fill that bar faster.
Doesn't matter. Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. And you and I have had this chat multiple times, offline and online, in different shows here in the global cooldown. It doesn't bother me at all. And I could definitely see the concern way back when it was like, what, 4 seconds was the time. That's a little too long in my book. Things were way slow. But then when you start seeing things like the monk being able to chain abilities together and speed up their own global cooldown, it really makes sense in this type of game and in the combat scheme that they have put together. I'm on board.
He's on board. Everybody's on board. Everybody's on board for 2.0 so far. Okay, I'm going to open up the can of worms. Let's talk about this. I mean, bottom line, I think one of the most controversial things that is definitely around Game Breaker and what everybody's been talking about, the $1 million question.
Where you're going.
Well, you've got players on the fence right now. You know, a lot of people watching this show, they're definitely playing. There's no doubt about it. You're playing and you're buying it, and there's not even a question for you, and I get that. But there are a whole lot of players out there who really are questioning and saying, is Final Fantasy 2.0, A Realm Reborn, worth a subscription fee? And this is an important question. I mean, we have really seen the MMO market and the space change in the past 12 months easily. It shifted from an era of, you know, hearing gamers say, I would never touch a free-to-play game because they're garbage, to most people now are feeling like, I don't want to touch a game that has a sub. And there's a lot of them out there. So, I don't know, Byrne, I'll start with you. What do you think?
Here we go.
Get it out, man. Get it out.
Chat's already just like, it's just rolling and rolling and rolling. Okay. Yes, to me personally, worth a subscription. But if I've got to talk to somebody else about it, Final Fantasy online players, whether it's 11 or 14, don't want it free to play. And that is who the game is marketed to.
Why is that? Why do they not want it free to play?
I don't. If Final Fantasy XI had a free-to-play option, I would have shot myself in the face. And with all of the leveling and classes and all these multiple paths to do the leveling over and over in 14, I don't want a game that I have microtransactions that are going to be required and things like that. To be honest, I also don't want the free-to-play, the tourists. And that's not to say that free-to-play is bad. For crying out loud, I run a free-to-play site. I love free-to-play.
Are you an elitist?
I love free-to-play.
Are you an elitist? Is that
when it comes to Final Fantasy, I guess I am. I guess I'm
all
a
right,
little bit of an elitist.
Wait, and that's fine. And I'll back elitist all day long. But again, go really quick. Also, why the community probably gets a bit of stick and hate from other people, right? Because I think a lot of players are.
No, that's because they're jealous. We already settled that.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. I figured that out. All right, move on.
Taking back your own. You're taking back your own.
You can't go back, Gary. You can't go back. I'm sorry. There's just a certain aspect when you have a game there's so much micro managing to be done, where there's lots of crafting to be done, lots of the. I argue a little bit that Age of Wushu is a game that I don't think free-to-play players really get any benefit out of, because there's so much macro going on in that game that you really should have a subscription to take advantage of everything there and not have to worry about it. Final Fantasy XIV to me is the same way, and it's not being marketed to the MMO populace at general. I'm convinced that Square Enix is marketing this to the Final Fantasy MMO only fans. I mean, we haven't seen commercials for it yet. It launches later. Do
you think we will? Do you think we're going to see? You think
you're going to see one in Europe? Yeah, I mean, there's been one that's been touting in Europe. I don't think you're going to see anything until a couple days before launch in the U.S. because that's not the campaign they need to run. They need to make Mr. Happy, pardon the expression. They need to make me happy. They need to make the 2,200 people that are Final Fantasy fans in chat that feel burnt by version 1 happy. All of the people that want to be made happy are perfectly willing to pay the subscription to, 1, play the game, and 2, keep you out because you won't play it. If that's elitist, I'm sorry, but that's the way I like this particular game.
Mr. P.
All right. Well, the first thing I've been thinking it the whole time when he was talking about microtransactions is I would never pay $24 for a retainer. I knew he would. I know he would like that because that's one of the conveniences you usually pay for is inventory space. And I definitely think it's worth a sub. And the reason being is when I look at the free-to-play market, there's two types of free-to-play. Obviously, there's pay-to-win, and then there's just cosmetics. I mean, there's both sides, and there's a fence a little bit about what's pay-to-win and what's just there for just to look good. But Final Fantasy XIV does what Final Fantasy does best: aesthetics, and that is one of the things that people are willing to pay microtransactions for the best. Now, would you rather accidentally spend $40 on a skin for something or on a costume? Because people out there do it. Or would you rather pay $12 a month, $15 a month, get as many costumes as you want, experience the game at your own pace, and there's just so much content that I can justify it right there with all the content that he's been talking about and all the the collaboration with Final Fantasy XIII. Some people might hate it, but it's just more stuff that kind of throws onto why it's a subscription-based model. There's just so much to do, and you're just paying the one-time fee, and that's it.
And chat is asking, Mr. Happy.
Is this my official theme song now?
It is, but I got to stop it now, or YouTube won't let us post the video because all of a sudden it'll come up with like a copyright infringement. So I snuck in like 2 seconds of it. You know what? I think watching the chat room when we talked about this as well, though, is that they've definitely, I think, done the right thing here. Obviously, for their player base, they definitely honed in and realized that
is also like crazy on when's it going to go free to play, and it's going to go free to play in 6 months, and it's gonna it's not. Trust me. Yoshi P1 has already said, if we get to a point where it has to go free-to-play, we'll shut the bitch down.
Yeah. And
that's simple. And 400,000 is the magic number here. They will make that in Japan alone, as far as subscribers.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Yoshi P, if you haven't read this article, I recommend you go look it up real quick. Yoshi P talks about why all these subscription-based games, that people, it's kind of because so many subscription-based games have gone free-to-play, why people just sort of expect anything that releases that's a subscription model that's not World of Warcraft will go free to play. And he talks about how usually a game goes free to play because their investors aren't getting their money quick enough. They need a quick buck. And they just make a little cash shop, try to get as much money as they can to pay their investors back. And at that point now they have to develop the game around free to play because it's what they've already done to pay back those investors. He says Square Enix doesn't need any investors. They're Square Enix. And that there's plenty of room on the market for them. They just need a steady subscriber base. That's all they really need. They don't need 8 million people like some people expect you need to run a subscription-based game. They just need a steady group of people. And 11 is a perfect example of that. 11 still has a subscription-based model, and they
still paying that damn thing.
Yeah, they don't have nearly 8 million people. They don't have anywhere near 1 million anymore. I don't even think.
Well, like I said, it definitely seems like they've made the right
expansion earlier this year, so don't try and tell me the game's dying. I mean, they just released an expansion in March for 11.
Definitely seems like they made the right decision with going with a sub-based game as far as like watching our chat room during that conversation. That is for sure. So good on that.
I got heated on that one.
You got a little bit. Don't worry.
All right, now I'm off my elitist soapbox.
I can take this too.
All right, I'm probably going to get flagged for that, but here we go. I want to talk a little bit more about Yoshi P, but first I want to tell you guys about Shutterstock. Do you guys know about Shutterstock? If you guys have a website or a YouTube page, you're going to want to pay attention. Check it out. We use Shutterstock all the time on GameBreaker.tv, literally every single day. We're launching XIV Nation, right? And I am on Shutterstock all day long. So what do they have? They've got stock photography, stock video footage, vectors, artwork, all kinds of stuff, icons, little things, really all the little things that you need to make your website just look awesome. So, or your creative project, maybe you're making YouTube videos and you want to spruce them up, you should check it out. We want to save you guys 30% off. All you got to do is go over to shutterstock.com, make an account. You can actually just make an account and start saving stuff today in your Lightbox and things like that and sorting stuff for free. You don't even have to pay anything for that. And if you decide to sign up, make sure you use offer code GameBreaker7. I'm going to save you guys 30% off on your account, which is an amazing deal. I don't think that they've ever offered 30% off ever. And I don't know how long they actually will. Here's a quick example. We have a YouTube channel called Super Mega Awesome Time. And we were looking for some sort of characters to build that out. It's a superhero vector. Vector is a vector file, which is used usually by Adobe Illustrator. So it's usually like custom artwork that you can resize and scale and all that good stuff. Oh, Ventor. I don't know what Ventor is. Vector. So as soon as you type it in there, you start getting a bunch of stuff. And we wanted some little doodads, some little guys to kind of represent the hosts of the show, which is Mike Shafton and myself. And we immediately found some stuff. Where are these guys? They're around here somewhere. I know we've got them on Shutterstock. Where are they? But it's not that guy. That guy's pretty cool. Chicks. Where are my Super Mega Awesome Time guys? They are here. Well, you get the point. I can't find them right now. I probably passed them up already. But they've got tons of awesome vector artwork. You know, maybe you got a YouTube channel. You want that little guy. I mean, all this kind of stuff. You'd have to commission an artist to build this stuff for you, and it would cost you just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars. So go over to Shutterstock. Start searching for stuff today. We use it constantly here at GameBreaker.tv. Like I said, I want to save you guys 30% off. All you got to do is use promo code GameBreaker7, and you will save 30% off on the Shutterstock. Love having these guys as sponsors. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the guy who turned all this around and why we're even here. So his name is Yoshi P. If you guys haven't been following it as closely as everybody else has here, he saved the day. So I remember doing the original XIV podcast when Tanaka was replaced by Yoshi P, and we were like, "Hey, who's this guy? Who is he? What's his background? Fill everybody in."
At that time,
yeah,
pretty much all he had done is have his hands on some Dragon Quest games. That was it.
Yeah, he didn't really have a big resume.
No. I mean, he was well liked by the teams that he worked on, and he had this drive to please customers. He was known for that inside Square, but other than heading up a few Dragon Quest projects, he didn't have a long resume to be jumping into producer-director of a multi-million-dollar MMO.
I think the biggest part about his resume is that he was an avid MMO fan, like modern-type MMO fan, so they probably also figured if he plays those kind of games on top of the kind of person he is, he probably can help us in this direction better than anybody else in the company.
That's how Square Enix hires now, Gary. We are eligible for Square jobs because we play a lot of MMOs.
Play a lot of MMOs. Hire me. I'll go make one. I know it's kind of too early to tell. The game hasn't even launched yet, but I don't know. Should I even ask if you think if he's bailed Square Enix out of this one?
You want to take this one first?
I'm going to say, yeah, I'll keep it short. Yeah, yes, he definitely bailed them out as far as not only this game goes, but I think the Final Fantasy franchise. To let this one die would have been a incredibly ugly black mark on the entire IP. I think he bailed out not only this game, but the Final Fantasy franchise, and there's certainly an argument that he may have bailed Square Enix themselves out in a lot of ways by doing what he's done here in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. 3 years ago, if you had told me that Square Enix was going to be doing a letter where they talk to their community...
Oh, unbelievable. Forget it.
No, I would have never believed you.
That was like unheard of.
Impossible. There's no way. And I think even with the way that the president sort of speaks to him, because we've seen on occasion him speaking to the new president of Square Enix, because you have to remember they did also lose their president and get a new one. he seems to have a very positive outlook on Yoshi P, and he seems to have a lot of trust that what Yoshi P is doing will help the company. And he's even said, if what you're doing doesn't work, boom, headshot. He said that right on camera to him.
I gotta say that you touched on that, and not only so game aside, everything looks really good, but I do think one of the most apparent changes that we've seen since he's taken over is the level of interaction that the team has started to take with the fans. Like you said, the live letters, the old Square Enix and Tanaka would never, ever have been as open and sort of chatty with the team. And I think it's very smart that Square Enix are realizing that in 2013 and the way things have changed, that you need to have that open relationship with the fans and communicate with them, which it used to just very much be like a wall. I still think they can do a better job, to be honest with you. And obviously there's a language barrier, and there's and they're working in, but at the same time, I do think that there could even be more of an open relationship, because we're seeing a lot of MMO developers specifically really just open the floodgates and just talk very freely with people. But I got to give them props, because they definitely have come a very far way with the level of communication and the interaction that they've had with their fans. Next month,
and it's one of those things that just look at this game. Yoshi P's been incredibly critical of Square Enix, and he still works there. It's amazing, right? He didn't get fired and tossed out the door for saying we took fans for granted. This company didn't know what we. And he always says we. He puts himself in there, even though he wasn't part of that initial team. 1.0 had no clue what they were doing. They didn't do it right. We screwed this up. We screwed this up. We need to change. Square Enix needs to change. He said a lot of very critical things about the company and the way it communicates with fans. But just think about, we maybe know some of the development people in different MMOs, right? We follow it closely because we write about it. We do the whole press gig about it. And if you really follow a game, maybe you know one or two of the community managers or the lead developer on a game. There are people that don't know that Final Fantasy XIV is an MMO, that know Yoshi P is the one that's in charge of it. They're starting to put a more personal face on it, and I hope that Square kind of pulls that philosophy out of just this product and into other ones as well.
All right.
Definitely.
So the next month that we're going to see here in front of us is basically I think it's going to be jam-packed with news, events, and betas, obviously. What's the road to launch look like right now?
All right. Well, because we have nothing solid. There's absolutely nothing solid. All we know is that tomorrow there's going to be a character creation benchmark where you'll be able to play around with character creation. And on August 8th, we're going to have the next live letter. We also know that the beta phase 4 won't start till after that. So we have now beta phase 4, which we know will only last a week. We have a few days of downtime between that and early access. We have early access, and then we have launch. So really, it makes the most sense for August 9th to be the starting day for beta phase 4. I mean, they literally have less than 20 days come August 9th to get a week done of that, to get early access, go over any last things they need to go over to get it launched. So August 9th through, what is that, like the 16th? That is most likely our beta phase 4. Then we're going to have probably at least 3 days, and this supports the August 20th date a little bit more for the early access. At least 3 days of downtime, if not at max a week, and sometime between August 20th and 24th we can expect.
Now, these dates, I gotta say, these dates are only speculation, right? I mean,
absolutely,
especially for open beta and for early access. These are all speculation, but they sound like they're in a pretty good window. It sounds solid.
I wouldn't be surprised, and Mr. Happy kind of has it pegged. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the full 7 days of early access on the 20th. Yoshi P in live letter at E3 had said that the break between the open beta and the early access was only going to be 1, 2, or 3 days. So Michael's first outline there of 9th through the 16th, 3 days off, early access for 7 days, that's the one that makes the most sense to me, because that aligns with what Yoshi P said at E3, a 3-day break between open beta and early access.
What are you guys planning? You got vacations planned? What do you got scheduled? What's everyone's launch plan? What classes are you guys rolling with? Burn, what are you going with?
I have 2 weeks off
Look at you.
I took 2 weeks. I get 5 or 4 or 5 a year for how long I've been at my place of employment. So I've got 2 weeks off coming up. And yes, I'll be going Thaumaturge first because it's all about Black Mage for me until Red Mage is available.
What about you, Ms. P?
Well, I have most everything in 50. So,
you damn legacy elitist.
Well, Arcanist is high on the priority. I mean, it's new, gotta try it. I definitely want to see if the buzz around Summoner is a good one. Some people complaining maybe the summons are a little too small. I personally don't mind it too much, but I think that Arcanist high on the priority list. And also just getting all the characters.
Are you gonna go for any world firsts or anything like that since you are Legacy?
Well, shout out to my my free company, who's ironically named Legacy. Yes,
oh man, you double elitist bastards! Not only are we going to play on a Legacy server, but we're going to go ahead and name our free company Legacy, bitches.
It's ironic because in 1.0 I played with a completely different group of people, and before Legacy was announced, we were called Legacy. So it's like it's just layer upon layer upon layer. Anyway, really, really hardcore free company that I'm going to be a part of. I would love to go for some world first, and I think that's the mentality going into it. But of course, I still have to appease all of my subscribers and my fans. So don't worry, guys. I'm not leaving you, and I'm not going to disappear. I'll be around. Don't worry.
He'll be around. He'll be around. All right, before we get out of here, let's do some viewer questions. If you guys have viewer questions for the XIV crew, you can send those to submit@gamebreaker.tv, and we love video questions. So if you guys want to record yourself, post it up on YouTube. Try and keep it around 30 seconds or somewhere around there, and send us the link to the question. You can send it to submit@gamebreaker.tv, and we'll play it on the show. So first up, this is Jason Kwok. He asks, he says, "What's your?" This is a good question. I can't wait to hear this. Is what's your expectation on PvP? They have yet to reveal it. Do you think it will be crap or surprisingly fun? I want to know. Inquiry minds want to know, Mr. Byrne. What's up with the P versus P?
Okay. I actually, I'm not huge in PvP. I like it. I just suck at it very much. A PvE guy. But I would love to say that I think it's going to be awesome, but I think it's just going to be standard. Right now, going into open beta / launch, the only PvP, and we're not talking about open world, we're talking about structured stuff. The only PvP that's going to be there is the 4v4 and 8v8 Coliseum battles. So those will be, kind of nice little deathmatch type things. The ones that everybody's waiting for is the frontline PvP. That's more your Realm v Realm. That's not going to be in the game until about 6 months after launch. So I'd like to say that PvP is going to be grand and fantastic, but I have a feeling it's just going to be pretty standard for at least the first 6 months while we wait for that more in-depth frontline stuff.
Yeah, I can completely agree. I think most people are just interested to see on how the global cooldown affects PvP, and how your thoughts have to sort of be more targeted. And positioning is definitely a big thing. How you're going to stay on the flank, how you're going to stay on the rear. How are you going to CC people? Because there are some abilities in the game right now, like I know Black Mage, Thaumaturge gets one called Ethereal Manipulation, lets you teleport right to an ally target. I mean, I want to see abilities like that. I can't wait to see Dragoons in PvP jumping all over the place, jumping backwards, jumping forward and then jumping back, and then I can't wait to see. I think that the way the jobs play, it's going to be really fun, even with just the 4v4 and 8v8.
Chatham is just excited to jump.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, as soon as you say Dragoon, everybody's like, "Can I jump?"
I couldn't get through. I couldn't get through an episode without talking about jump. I had to, Vanium. Next question up from Vanium says, "Why haven't they added a great sword job to the game, such as Dark Knight from XI? The weapon is missing from the game. Why do you think you just gotta wait? Is it coming?"
Yeah, I think it's more of just just the time frame. I mean, they have stuff like that planned, and Dark Knight, they're even afraid to say Dark Knight in some of the things lately, just because they know a mob of people jump on the subject. And actually looking back at 1.0, I think it was, a lot of people did things like data mining information, and there was a class in there found called the Executioner. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that actually make some sort of appearance as a two-handed class that jumps over into Dark Knight.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Happy. Do you think we're going to see great swords and scythes at the same time with the whole one weapon thing? I don't think we're going to see both, and I think they're going to do great swords before they do scythes.
I think that's pretty spot on. I mean, one could argue that Thaumaturge kind of can go two-handed or one-handed right now. They do have somewhat of an option, so the possibility is there. But right now, with the way that Yoshi-P speaks about the weapon system, I expect a similar thing. I expect sides will be more for maybe like if we see Beastmaster, if they're not going to be an axe wielder.
later on down the road.
Like if they're not a single-handed axe wielder, I can't imagine them with anything else but a scythe, to be honest.
All right, next up, this question from Anthony Botts. Interesting one. He says, I left Final Fantasy XI for the quest-driven instance dungeons of World of Warcraft. Does this 14 revamp appeal to players like this?
It's made for you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, it's content-driven leveling. I mean, the quests... It got the quests right, I think. The main story is going to be wonderful. Even in 1.0, the main story was great. Yeah. You know, it was one of the points they definitely got right. And storytelling has never been a weakness of Final Fantasy. We know that. Granted, I could say a few things about some of the recent ones. But, but yeah, no, definitely very quest-driven. Your first character will be very quest-driven. And after that, very content-driven. A lot of dungeons, a lot of raids planned, and a lot of content that varies from 4 people to 8 people to 24 people.
All right, last up this week, finally from Joey Rizzolo. He says, with all the popularity of closed beta, do you think the game has the potential to be a major hit? Little has been revealed about Endgame other than Yoshi P's assurance that it will be vibrant. What are your thoughts, Mr. Byrne?
That's a good question. I mean, 1 million beta registrants. That's a pretty big number. It depends on how you define big hit, but that aside, I think it's going to do moderately well in the United States. It's going to do very well in the West, in Japan, and 400,000 is all it needs, and I don't think it's going to have any problem sustaining 400,000. Are you expecting World of Warcraft numbers? If you are, then no MMO is ever going to do that again, in my opinion. So no, it's not going to be a big hit in the way World of Warcraft is. Does it make enough to sustain itself over a very long period of time? We're talking years, not 6 months. Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And like you said, 400,000, the magic number. But even then, it's just expecting a game to fall on WoW. I mean, and it's weird because I see a lot of World of Warcraft people saying, "Hey, I'm trying this out." A lot of people in WoW. It's coming towards the end of an expansion, so I feel like people are looking for another game right now, and I feel like even though Final Fantasy XIV is just catered to get a few 100,000 subs, I feel like they're going to exceed their own expectations, at least at launch, and that they will meet their expectations somewhere along the line. Maybe 6 months to 8 months, they'll be down to that sweet spot that they want to be, maybe even above it, I think.
400,000, man. I think we'll have that next week in the chat room right here. Thanks to everyone who showed up for this premiere episode, and we hope to see you next week. Like I said, tweet me at Gary Gannon and let me know what you think of this show, and we will make adjustments, go down the rabbit hole deeper, cover some stuff you guys want to cover. But I got to say thanks to Michael Poveromo, a.k.a. Mr. Happy. Follow him on Twitter at Mr. Happy1227. And where can they find you on the YouTubes?
YouTube, my YouTube name's a little bit different. It's actually a Kingdom Hearts reference because when I was younger, it's Xehanort, Xehanort 1227. If you go to my Twitter, I'll just tweet it after the show for anyone who follows. I'll just make sure that you guys can get your hands on that. There
you go. Pleasure, sir. Great having you on the show this week. And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Michael Byrne, follow him at Magic. It's MAGICKMANN1. He's the editor-in-chief of FreetoPlay.tv, where we cover all those nasty, terrible, bad free-to-play games without subs. Bad. No, they're awesome. Go check it out, FreetoPlay.tv. You can follow me at Gary again and follow Gamebreaker TV, Gamebreaker TV, and don't forget we're going to be launching XIV Nation again. Thank you so much. There's so many people that showed up in chat room today, and I'm kind of blown away by the amount of people that actually showed up, because I was going to be happy if like a few hundred of you shown up, and just, I don't even know what the last number is, like a couple thousand. So you guys are awesome. Hopefully we did justice, and we'll be back next week, Tuesday, for PST for more XIV Reborn, and keep a lookout, follow the Twitter, and I'll let you guys know when XIVNation.com actually launches. Thanks so much again. See you guys next week for some more XIV Reborn.